What's up everyone, I'm Jessekazam and welcome back to another Escape from Tarkov video. This is going to be my attempt at an all-in-one, everything you need, Escape from Tarkov beginner's guide. There's a lot of information to this game, so I want this to be one place where you can go to get just about everything you need to get into the game and start having fun. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this guide now is because we are just in the midst of a brand new wipe and a brand new patch to the game, which means that a lot of things change, right? The game is in beta, so things change around a lot. So I wanted to create something that was also super relevant, that included a lot of the changes that have come to the game extremely recently. Now, that being said, there's going to be a ton of information that I go through here, and I'm going to try to strike the perfect balance of as much information as possible, but also move very quickly so this video isn't unbelievably long. But the beauty in that is that I've spent the past year making much more in-depth guides about almost every single subject that I'm going to cover here. So this is your one-stop shop to get you right in. And then if you want to learn something again, I'm going to timestamp everything down below so you can get back to it here. And I'm also going to link a bunch of the videos that I've made about each of these subjects so that once you start playing, or if you have more questions, you can go much more in-depth there. I also stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch, and all my links will be down below. If you want to hang out, ask questions, just stop by and say, hey, watch some raids. I'd love to have you there. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing before we even get onto the computer or anything is to know that this game is in beta, which means it is often very buggy. The developers are constantly trying to make this game better. So just know that if that turns you off, then maybe come back when the game launches in full. But the game is in beta, and the hype around the game right now is around the fact that there's a wipe. So a wipe is when they basically reset the game back down to zero. All of our progression, all of our money, all the things that we've grinded for is going to get deleted, and everybody goes back down to zero. And this won't be the last time that happens. This is going to happen a few more times before the game goes to like a full release. So if that turns you off, knowing that that's going to happen, know that as well. Maybe come back later in the development when that happens less frequently, or once it goes 1.0 and that doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, we're not sure how they're going to deal with that at launch. They're doing this because when they have big content patches and they're changing a bunch of stuff, which they're about to do with 12.6, they wipe the game so that everybody can progress through these new changes together. I see these wipes as an opportunity to take everything that I learned from playing the last time and apply it and maybe right some of the wrongs I made, so that by the time the game goes 1.0, I'm going to be much more proficient because I've been able to make the mistakes, do all the things, and then wipe the character and try again. So I'm personally, I kind of like that they do that, but if you're not, just know that. Now, if you don't have the game, you buy the game on escapefromtarkov.com. Do not buy it anywhere else. It is not on Steam yet, maybe in the future. But right now, escapefromtarkov.com is the only place to buy it. There's a few different additions to the game. The difference between these additions is mainly the stash size. So where you put all your stuff, it increases as you go down. Some starting equipment, which is in the long run completely negligible in my opinion. And then the secure containers, which we're going to talk about in a little bit later, but it's basically a pouch where anything you put in there, you're not going to lose those items. The Prepare for Escape edition has a bigger one. The Edge of Darkness has the biggest one that you can get with an addition. And then the Edge of Darkness also has free access to DLCs. The stash is upgradable in-game with in-game currency. The secure containers you can get, you cannot get the gamma container in-game. You can get a bigger one than the gamma container and a bigger one than the beta container and the beta container, all by playing the game. So you don't really have to worry about that. So I always suggest people start with the standard edition for many reasons. One, like I said, a lot of that stuff is upgradable in-game. Two, it's not a high barrier of entry. $45 is not that bad. And three, you can upgrade to a higher tier package of the game all the way up to Edge of Darkness anytime you want without having to reset your character. So if you play the game a lot and you really want to, you're really falling in love with it, you're digging the game, you think that this money is worth it, you want that bigger stash space, you want that bigger container, you don't have to wipe your character. They're just going to send those things to you, and you can do that at any time. So there's almost no reason not to go with the standard edition first. So if you haven't bought the game yet, I would check that. Once you buy the game and once you install it, you're going to say yes to a few things. You're going to get to a screen similar to this. My account isn't wiped, so I don't have this screen. So we have this picture where you pick Bear or USEC. I just wanted to take a second to kind of talk about these. The only functional difference between picking these is the clothing items and the language that your character speaks. The bear are the Russian military contractors. The USEC are the Western military contractors. So the USEC is going to speak English. The bear is going to speak Russian. This really only comes into effect when you kind of taunt your enemy or taunt at a friendly or anything like that. There might be differences way down the line, but every time the game wipes, you get to choose this guy again, or anytime you reset your character, you can pick again. So don't worry too much on picking that. Once you launch the game and you get through all of that, you're going to get to the main title screen. So just to kind of let you know the flow of what I'm going to do is I want to talk about all the menus, your character, all the things that you see here so that you understand all these different things. And then we'll go into start talking about how to prepare for a raid and all the things that you need to know to go into a raid. So we'll start with the character screen. Now, this is everything over here on the right is your stash. So this is all of your stuff that you've accumulated, your loot, your containers, your cases, everything that you've got, your currency, all the money that you have is up here. This is persistent. You're not going to lose any of this stuff. You cannot access it within a raid, and you're not going to lose it when you play a raid. The left side of the screen is what is on your character. Anything you put over here, you will lose when you die, except for your melee weapon. That's going to stay with you always, and anything in this pouch slot. These are those secure containers we were talking about earlier. The alpha container that comes with the standard edition is 2x2. It's 4 cells. The biggest one you can buy with money, the Edge of Darkness, is 3x3. And this is the Kappa container, which is you can acquire in-game by completing most of the quests. It's very hard to do, and then there's multiple other containers as well. So anything in here, you're not going to lose when you die. Everything else, you're going to lose when you die. And there is the kind of draw to Escape from Tarkov, the inherent risk of knowing that if I make a mistake, if I die, I lose this stuff that I maybe bought or found or invested in. And then the pressure of knowing that when I get to kill somebody, I get to take their stuff, whether it's AI or a player, you get to take their stuff, you get to extract with it and add it to what you have or sell it or make money and stuff like that. So that is the main draw to Escape from Tarkov. Now on the top left, we have a bunch of menus. The overall menu is going to show a preview of your character. You can change your clothes here if you want to, and then a bunch of stats on how many raids that you've survived or died or done, or your survival rate, your kills, a bunch of stats about like the shots that you've taken, the PMCs that you've killed, all sorts of stuff like that. I wouldn't worry about this too much, especially if you're a new player. Don't worry about these statistics. My survival rate was like 7% when I was a new player, so don't stress too much about that stuff. Just know that it is here. Back to the gear screen. Then we have the health screen. So health in Escape from Tarkov is pretty complicated. This is one of those things where I've done a few guides, like a basic guide and an advanced guide into the health system. So you can definitely check those out. But the super basic stuff is that you have 435 total health, which is down here. I'm going to take the camera away for a second so you can see the other things down here. Blood pressure, this stuff, the radiation, all that stuff is not in the game yet. But your hydration, which is 100, and your energy, which starts at 100, you can upgrade that to 110. These things are in the game currently. We'll talk about those in a minute. But this 435 health that you have is broken up amongst your limbs. You die if you take damage to your thorax or your head, and they go all the way down to 0. You are dead. The rest of your limbs, when they go down to 0, they break or get blacked out, like a blackened arm or a blackened leg. That's kind of what people in the game call it. And then those have kind of separate effects. If you lose all the health in an arm or blacked out an arm, your aim gets really, really shaky and it's much harder to aim. If you black out a leg, you can't sprint anymore. You just kind of limp and hobble along. And if your stomach gets blacked out, you dehydrate very, very quickly. Now, there's also some effects that you can take, kind of like ailments. A bleed will just, your whole health pool will start to go down very slowly. You can have multiple bleeds at the same time. A fracture is basically like a simulated blackened out limb. It's like breaking a limb, but it still has health. So if you jump off a place high, that's pretty high up, you might take some damage to your leg and fracture it. So when you have a fracture, similar to when you have a blacked out leg, you're not going to be able to sprint, but a fracture can be healed much easier than a blacked out limb. Dehydration is when you have no energy left and you'll start to lose health from your entire body and relatively quickly. And exhaustion or running out of energy does the similar thing. You start to lose health from your entire body and your stamina gets depleted much, much quicker and regenerates much, much slower. So those can be pretty brutal. Now, the meds in this game, I have guides specifically around the medication in the game, and they can be pretty complex, but they can break down to the fact that splints fix fractures. General medication with larger health pools, they will add health. So if you get shot in the arm, it's 20 out of 60. You can use the general meds to get your health back up to 60. Bandages will stop bleeds. Most of the mid-tier or late game medications like this IFAK here will stop a bleed and heal a limb at the same time. So you don't have to worry about bringing bandages and meds for too long. You will at the very beginning, and then you'll be able to get stuff like this. Painkillers will temporarily allow you to sprint when you have a blacked out leg. You will take damage though, but you will be able to sprint during that time until that wears off. Surgery kits will let you fix a blacked out limb, but not restore it to its full HP. So if you lost a leg, it's 0 out of 65. You fix it with a surgery kit, it might be now 1 out of like 40, and you can heal that limb, but it will be easier to break again. And then the stimulants that are in the game all have a range of different buffs and debuffs that happen. Some of them act as painkillers as well. These are more advanced meds. There's really cool stuff that you can do here. I've got a more complicated guide on those, but know that as you come across these, just double click on them, read up about them, and see if you want to use them or sell them. You can drink to fix your dehydration and add to your water. And you can eat food that you find in game to fix exhaustion and raise your energy levels. If you die in a raid, you don't come back to the main menu with full health. You come back hurt. And sometimes if you had a fracture, you'll keep that fracture, or if you just die, everything will just be lower health. You can choose to pay therapists before you get back to the screen in the like after action report. You can pay therapists to heal you all the way up, or you can use the meds that you have in your stash if you so choose. So that is the super basic breakdown of the health in Tarkov. The skills, I do have a video about this as well if you want to go in detail. There's a lot of soft skills in the game, and then there's a lot more, as you can see, that will be added to the game. These are cool passive skills that get leveled in the background most of the time, and you can read up on the wiki or just even hear what these things do. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. Strength is going to let you jump higher, carry more weight, throw grenades farther. Endurance is going to let you run farther on the same amount of stamina, stuff like that. This is a very fluid system right now. They're getting changed around a lot. I think in 12.7, they're doing a major overhaul of this. So it's good to know because as you get to be a more advanced player is when these things take into, you take them into account more often. Certain things level very, very quickly. Certain things level very, very slowly. I'm at 48 perception, but only 8 metabolism. So these things can be a little kind of rough around the edges. You do need to level certain skills for quests though, but you might not need to worry about that until you kind of get there. This system is changing relatively frequently, but know that they're here. It's a really cool aspect of the game. This is some of the subtle RPG elements where you can kind of pick a focus like assault rifles or sniper rifles, use them a lot and gain some benefits with them. Now the map screen, you need to have these maps in your inventory, which you can buy from therapists in order to see them here. If you have more than one, you can toggle them here. The maps are very crude. They're often in Russian. There's not a whole lot of information that they give you. If you want to use them, you can kind of like, scroll in, right click and create a marker if you want of something that you found. But I would basically never use these. There's some really high quality player-made maps that show you much more information like loot, extraction points, spawn points, key locations, all sorts of stuff like that. I'm going to link that down below. We're going to pull one of those maps up later. I would highly recommend you use those. And these maps you can't always even access all the time while you're playing the game. So I would check out that link below for those maps. The tasks, these are any of the quests that you have active in the game. Right now, all of the quests are considered side quests. There is like a main story to Escape from Tarkov, and all of those quests have not been released yet. They're going to come potentially with one of the next major updates later on this year. We're not sure though. But these quests are the ways that you unlock better gear. You can level up your traders with them. Certain specific quests are like unlock specific items, or just unlocking a trader, which we'll talk about in a minute, and unlock barter items and all sorts of stuff like that. They are also the fastest way to level your character. When you look at the rewards, the later on into the quest line you go, they give you insane amounts of experience. Experience, by the way, that you can see in the overall tab here, or in the skills. You can see how close you are to your next level. Using the tasks is the absolute best way, in my opinion, to level your character, especially in the beginning if you're trying to get to 40. So definitely check out these tasks. They force you to do a bunch of weird stuff and go to all sorts of maps and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of progression. It gives you that sense of progression. So definitely check out the tasks. Now we'll go back and we'll go to the trader screen. Now these are the 8 traders that are currently in Escape from Tarkov, and they each, for the most part, specialize in a different thing. These are where you're going to buy and sell a lot of your items on loot and armor, all that kind of stuff. Really quickly, I've got a video specifically on the traders for more in-depth stuff. Check that out. But Prapor does a lot of like Russian weapons and attachments and ammo. Therapist is going to do medication, cases, stims. Fence was kind of like a weird player-driven thing where you can sell something to Fence and then other people can buy it from Fence. It's almost never a good deal. I would basically never recommend selling anything to or from Fence. Skier sells a lot of attachments and weapons. Peacekeeper sells all the UN or the Western weapons and attachments, and he deals in US dollars as opposed to rubles. Mechanic does a lot of like higher end weapon barters, higher end attachments, especially as you level him up. Ragman does armor, helmets and backpacks and rigs and all that kind of stuff. Jaeger does some more miscellaneous stuff and some more Russian weapons and attachments and stuff like that. Now, you level these traders. Each trader has 4 different levels. When you start, you're just at level 1, and this is all you can buy. And you can level them up to new tiers, unlocking new equipment. And you level them up by leveling up your character, doing tasks with that specific trader, and by buying and selling from that trader specifically. So you're going to need to do those things with each trader. You buy here, you sell here up in the top left, and then this is where he will show you the tasks that he wants you to do, he or she wants you to do. So leveling these up is going to unlock much better gear as you go on. What they sell can often seem pretty overwhelming, just a bunch of miscellaneous crap, and it's hard to understand. We're going to talk about the weapon modding a little bit later. You don't have to worry about that too much right at the beginning. Don't force yourself to worry about it. You're going to learn this stuff, and there's much easier ways to find out which of these things that you need than just scrolling through here. And we are going to talk about that a little bit in a second. So that's the traders. Up here at the top, we see the flea market. Now the flea market is the player-driven economy. So this is where I can sell something from my stash and have another player buy it from me. This changed the game up quite a bit when it was introduced. Also, just a quick note, this video was recorded before the 12.6 wipe during the pre-wipe event. So they mentioned that they might update the UI of this a little bit. There's definitely a few places that that's needed. So if it looks a little bit different from this, don't worry, all this information should still be valid. With 12.6, they are changing it so it is a find and raid only flea market, which means only items that you go into a raid, find in that raid, and extract with, you can sell on the flea market. You can also barter. If I wanted to trade this gun for something, instead of just putting, I want, 60,000 rubles or whatever, I can trade this for a different gun or an optic or anything like that. And you can do that here. But you have to do something that was found in raid win 12.6, which you know something's found in raid, but this little check mark right here, item found in raid. So the flea market, player-driven economy, you can only sell things that were found in raid. Once you buy that thing, it is no longer found in raid, so you can't resell it. Once you buy it, now it's yours, but you're going to have to use it. You can't resell that item. So right here on the screen, you can browse and you can search through everything, or you can kind of break things down by category if you're looking for something specific. You can see the merchant rating, which is the people's like trader reputation, which we'll talk about in a second. See the item, you can sort by price, you can see when something expires, or you can purchase it right here. If you just click on it and not click on purchase, you can unlock a few different things here. We'll talk about these in a second. You can apply filters to the flea market and only do barter items, or remove barter items, or do specific conditions. If you're doing armor, you can remember filters. You can do a bunch of stuff here. You can only show stuff for a specific currency. You can only show stuff from players or traders. You can do a bunch of filters here. The wish list is where you can start to create a list of things that you know you buy off the flea market often, or you want to check on the flea market. And that's just by, when we said clicking, not purchase, just clicking into an item. You can click add to wish list or remove from wish list right there. That's pretty self-explanatory. My offers. So when you start, you can only put 3 things up on the flea market at a time. And you start with a reputation of about 2 or 3. Now this reputation is increased by selling stuff on the flea market. Every 50,000 rubles that you sell, it increases very slightly over time. I mean, you can see this entire wipe, I only went from 3 to 4 offers, but if you live on the flea market and you're really good at selling stuff and pulling out items that people want, you can get up to 5, 6, 10 different listings. The wiki, which I'll link down below, shows you like an exact breakdown there. If you put something up for sale on the flea market and nobody buys it, it expires in a few days or 24 hours. You lose reputation. It's a little bit, it's not like it's going to destroy it or anything. Or if you put something up and decide you want it or made a mistake and you take that down, you take that listing down, same thing. It's going to remove a little bit of your reputation. Now, navigating the flea market can be very easy through these 3 things here: filter by item, linked search, and required search. And I'll show you that if you're something in your stash, if I right click on this and I click filter by item, it's going to take me directly to the flea market, and it's going to show me all of the TX15s, and it's going to show me those, and it's going to sort them by price specifically. So I can just, if I want more of one thing, I can just filter by item, and now I can see and I can buy the one I want. If I want to see what attachments fit on something, you can right click and go link search. And this is going to show me all the things that attach to that core item that I did the link search on. Now with weapons, we'll talk about this a little bit later. Sometimes you have to open up the weapon and link search a specific part to find what you're looking for, but know that that's there. And then you can do, like with a Bitcoin, for instance, you can do a required search. And this would pull up anything that I've got a Bitcoin and I want to know if other people are selling things and what they want in return is Bitcoin. So I've got this Bitcoin. Let me see if I can turn it into a gun. I've got this whatever, X, Y, or Z, and I want to see if I can turn it into something else. You can do a required search. That doesn't happen too often, but between searching in the browse menu and using those 3 things in your thing, in your stash, filter by item, link search, required search, you're going to be able to navigate the flea market much, much better. Now we'll go back to the main menu and go to the hideout. Now the hideout is basically where your PMC exists between raids. When you first get here, it's all dilapidated, it's broken down, none of these things are working, and you have to build it up over time. These things that you, each of these kind of sections of the hideout get built up by, you have to spend either money, you have to find specific items to construct that, you have to wait a lot of times for certain ones. There are certain times where skills are involved. You have to have your strength to level, 2 or 3 in order to upgrade this. And then it's, the wiki will show you, but there's like a tangled web of like, the Bitcoin farm requires X, Y, and Z to be constructed, and that requires this to be constructed. So it kind of takes you on a journey of what to upgrade and when. This is a huge money sink while you're upgrading your character, putting a lot of time and effort into upgrading this. But in my opinion, it is way worth it, and it pays off in droves over time. So this is going to be where you can craft specific items. When you craft items in the hideout, they are considered, that item you craft is considered found in raid. So you can use these items to sell in the flea market. You can use these items to turn in for quests, especially quests that need find and raid items. You can make quite a bit of money crafting things and selling them. You can also craft guns, ammo, and grenades from the workbench here. These recipes are constantly getting changed and tinkered with and added to. Certain parts of the hideout will increase how fast you can level your skills. They'll increase how fast you heal when you're outside of a raid. They'll increase your total level of energy. And it can be an insane amount of passive income in the form of the Bitcoin farm, which actually uses graphics cards that you find in the game to just generate Bitcoin in the background, which is a very valuable item that you can then sell or barter. I have made way more money than I put into the hideout by using these things and selling these items. You can also craft meds here as well, which can be, in the long run, a great way to not have to purchase them. You can just find things and craft them. And then there's also kind of like a gambling game here where you can pay scavs to go find you loot in different amounts. Sometimes they'll pull really valuable items. Sometimes they'll pull absolute garbage and you lose money. But it's all run off the generator, which requires fuel, which you can purchase or find in raid. And when you run out of fuel, you know, your hideout kind of shuts down and everything moves slower. I've got a dedicated video talking about the hideout, a few actually, that you can check those out if you would like as well. You can also test out some guns at the shooting range. You can actually enter the hideout here and go test out guns at the shooting range. You can increase the size of your stash here. It is very expensive if you don't have the Edge of Darkness edition. It is very expensive and it does wipe when the game wipes. But if you're looking for something to grind for in the late game, you can upgrade your stash there. You can also reduce the amount of time it takes to do a scav run, which we're about to talk about in a second. But you can make that timer shorter. So in my opinion, the hideout is very important. It's a great way to make money and it's something to do while you're leveling up your character. Now, that is just about everything from these main menus that you're going to, you know, the stuff you're going to be looking at outside of a raid. So we'll start talking about things to get you in a raid. Now, I mentioned scavs, so we'll take a look at that in a second. If you click Escape from Tarkov, you click your scav here. Now, in Escape from Tarkov, it's PvPvE, which is player versus environment, which is like AI. So the scavs in Escape from Tarkov are the AI. In the lore, they're just like regular citizens of Tarkov that stayed behind after all this stuff happened and took up arms and banded together, and they don't want us there. So scavs are going to be aggressive to you always as your PMC. Because they're civilians, they oftentimes do not have very good loot. Guns without buttstock, not great armor, not great ammo, stuff like that. But they can be devastating if you underestimate them in Escape from Tarkov. But every 20 minutes, you can play as a scav, which is amazing because it generates you a random loadout. You can go into a raid. You can go for PvP. You can try and find other PMCs and kill them. You can try to kill other scavs. However, when you're playing as a scav, the other scavs will not be aggressive towards you unless you engage with them. Then they will be aggressive towards you. So it might not be in your best interest to shoot other scavs. Or you can just run out and just run around, loot some miscellaneous stuff and extract with this loot. The beauty is when you extract from a scav raid, you have the ability to drag all of that equipment, everything that you were wearing and everything that you found into your PMC's stash. So every 20 minutes, it's a free kit, it's a free loadout and a free opportunity to go destroy some, you know, PMC or loot some buildings and pull out a lot of value or items that you need. So I highly, highly recommend that you do this as often as possible. As you level up your hideout, you can even reduce the amount of time it takes to do scav raids so you can do them more often. So I highly recommend doing these as often as possible. The scavs are one of 3 different types of AI that you will come across in the game. There are scav bosses, which have their specific weapon loadouts. The plan is for each map to have one. Right now, only a few maps have them. I've got videos on that. But the bosses are like souped up scavs that have completely different AI that are much harder to kill, that have much better loot. Sometimes they have like scav guards, which are regular scavs with like much better loot, and they've tinkered with the AI. And then there are Scav Raiders, or just Raiders, which are in the lore ex-PMCs that decided to defect and now they're roaming Tarkov. You can find Raiders on the Terror Group Labs map or the reserve map currently, and I'm sure they're going to be adding them to more maps. And they've got a crazy aggressive AI, like the actual code with them. It's much more aggressive. They're much more accurate. They have much better loot. So you can't play as them currently. You can only play as the regular Scavs, but that is good to know. Take that opportunity as often as possible. So now we'll start talking about the things that you can do for your PMC to get him ready for the raid. So I put together a kit here of stuff that I had. Now we'll start with the gun modification in Escape from Tarkov. Escape from Tarkov has one of the most complex and in-depth gun modification systems. These are all based on real weapons, real weapon parts, real attachments. Everything is real, which makes it incredibly complex, but super fun. It is definitely overwhelming. Don't worry too much about it as a brand new player. This is stuff you're going to learn over time, get much more proficient with. But it is pretty intense. You buy all these attachments from the traders. When you double click on an item, you can see all the different things that it come with. If you right click on something, you can disassemble a weapon and you can start to see, the upper, the lower, charging handles, buffer tubes, optics, everything. It's all part of the weapon. Now, to figure out what what fits on what, you can go to a trader and click on a specific attachment, and the compatible with thing here, if you lower that drop down, it'll show you anything that you have in your stash it's compatible with. So somewhere in my stash, I have an AK-74, and this suppressor will attach to that. So you can kind of go through here and figure that out if you want to do it that way. Another way to do it is if you click on a weapon, if I right click on a weapon and click modding, it's going to bring up this modding screen with all the attachment slots. So if I wanted to switch out the pistol grip, from the modding screen here, it's only going to show me if I have something in my stash that fits that slot. I don't have anything in my stash that fits that slot. If I wanted to put something on here, I have an Atlas muzzle brake somewhere that I can attach. And then I also have this blackout suppressor that I can attach as well. So this is a good way to see if any of the miscellaneous items or attachments that you found in a raid or pulled off of other guns will fit other things, because it's only going to show you stuff that you have. Now, if I right click and go edit preset, now this is going to pull up, and this is now going to show me every available pistol grip in the game that I can put on there, whether I have it or not. So this screen is a great way to learn. These are all the optics and optic mounts that I can put right onto this. So this is a great way to learn what kind of stuff that you can put on. Now, the thing is, if I start slapping things on in this menu and then try to assemble this gun, if I back out right now, the gun won't have changed because I don't have those things. If I try to use this preset system to assemble this gun, I might not have those specific items unlocked from the traders yet. So it might try to have me buy it from the flea market, which can get crazy expensive. So be aware until you know how to use this preset system that could happen. But this is a great way to learn. Now, I do have a video on the preset system, which basically allows you to put together a gun that you like, save that preset, and then open it at any time and basically choose what weapon you would like to assemble that on. So if I had made that preset, I've got a few different SA58s in my stash. I can say, well, I want to turn this one into that preset, click on it. It allows you to buy any items that you need from the traders or from players, and then assemble that weapon right in there. So that's way down the road. Once you start getting really proficient with the weapon modding system, you can create some presets that just help you save time. But for now, know that this could be a good way to learn what attachments go on what, because like we said, this weapon modification system is incredibly complex. The other way that you can do it is like we talked about earlier. If I just double click on this, if I right click on this weapon and click link search, it's going to show me on the flea market what things attached to it. And I can even open this up and see what are the vital parts for an SA58. What are the gear mods for the SA58? So this is a great way to, once again, it'll show you the traders, and then it will also show you if players have things for sale as well, Everything is cheap right now because we're in the pre-wipe event, and it's part of what they do. Everything is not normally that cheap. But let it be known that you can't just right click a gun, click link search, and it'll show you everything. Sometimes, like if I wanted to put a compensator at the end of the barrel or a suppressor, you have to double click it and click on the barrel, the 11-inch SA58 barrel. I right click on that, click link search. Now it's going to show me the muzzle brakes I can attach to it and some suppressors and stuff like that. Certain muzzle brakes. Now, if I buy that, I can also right click that, link search, and now it'll show me the barrels it attaches to, but then also the suppressors that go on that muzzle brake. So a link search is always showing you in both directions what can attach to that item. The link search is, in my opinion, the best way to figure out what you can put on what. It's an easy way to do that, but even that takes a little bit of time because you might have to go through here and be like, oh, what attaches to this thing? Let me see. You're not going to get everything first time, but that's kind of a super brief overview of the gun modding system. Once again, I have a video on that. Check that out. But it is very complex, and the more you learn about it, the more fun that it gets. The next thing to talk about is armor, what armor you bring into a raid. Now, I've got a specific video dedicated to this. I highly recommend you check it out. But some of the basic stats are you've got an armor points, which is the durability of the armor, and an armor class, which is just the class of the armor. The classes range from 1 through 6. 6 being the highest class. It's going to stop the most stuff. The higher you go, a lot of times they can be heavier, or they can have different debuffs. So my movement speed is slower. My turning speed is slower. The ergonomics are less. It's just harder to move around in these chunkier armors. Now, the armor points, as I get shot, that's going to start to weaken. If you make it out of a raid and your armor gets damaged, you can right click and repair that armor. And you can repair that armor through Proporse, Gear, or Mechanic. And each of these, as you go up, is going to repair it to a better durability, but it's going to cost more. And when you, as you can kind of see right here, when you repair something, it lowers the overall durability. So this is 65 out of 65. If it got damaged down to 30 out of 65 and I repaired it, it would repair up to like 58 out of 58. And there definitely comes a point where even though it's a high tier armor, if the overall durability gets down far enough, it's not going to do very much. So you're going to have to play with that around, 60% of its original durability is when I start to question if it's worth keeping around. But that is a general overview of how the armor works in Escape from Tarkov. It'll show you what it covers as well in armor areas. So this does not protect my arms. It is just my thorax and my stomach. Helmets are similar in the sense that they've got armor points, helmets and face shields, and they've got armor classes. The helmet is class 5. The face shield is also class 5. They have different armor points as well. When you attach them, they stack. The helmets also have a ricochet chance, which is a something unique to them, which is just a chance that any bullet basically bounces off depending on the angle. So having high ricochet is awesome. But like we said, the movement speed and stuff like that can be changed as well. There's a little bit more to it. Check out that video, but that's the super brief overview. Now, the next thing to talk about is the ammo that you use in your weapon. Now, once again, going for hyper-realistic, there's a bunch of different ammo types in Escape from Tarkov for each caliber, which can be very overwhelming as well. But no, the information isn't shown in-game, but know that the ammo types will have different statistics, and I'm going to link down below an ammo chart for you to take a look at so you can look at these things. And I'll also link down below the Battle Buddy app, which Veritas, another content creator, made. It's amazing. The ammunition have a few basic things that you should know about, which is the penetration, which is how likely it's going to penetrate through an armor. The armor damage, which how efficient is it's going to be at destroying the armor, even if it doesn't penetrate it. And flesh damage, which is how much damage it's going to do to a limb that's not covered by armor. So in this case, my arms or my legs. Now, you can be proficient with most of the ammos in Escape from Tarkov as long as you understand them. And that's the most important thing, because there can be times if you get an ammo that has very low pen and high flesh damage, if you don't know that, you can come across somebody who has armor on, put a ton of shots into them, and they're tanking it because it's a much slower round and it's meant for flesh damage or something like that. or vice versa. You could use really expensive, really high armor pen rounds on scavs that you don't need it and be wasting a lot of money. The general rule of thumb is that the armor class requires a similar penetration times 10. So armor class 5 requires around 45 to 50 penetration from an ammo to pen this reliably, give or take, but that's the general gist of it. So that's the ammo. There's all sorts of different types that get unlocked. There's a tons of different ammos. That's just something that I really, really highly recommend you look into, even just a little bit, because understanding the ammo, even if you don't want to memorize all the spreadsheets and stuff, that's fine. But if you understand it, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache. Certain ammos are only found in raid. Certain ammos can be bought after specific quests. And certain ammos, they'll only let you buy a few hundred of them. Some of the top tier stuff, that's changed all the time as well. But know that about the ammo. Now, the next thing is, you see I threw that ammo into that magazine right here. We'll talk about some of the gear that you need and how you need to set this up. So first of all, we'll talk about ammo and magazines. So I just unloaded that. So if I have this magazine in there, it's got 20 rounds. It's a 20 round mag. In Escape from Tarkov, if I shoot, for instance, 9 of these bullets and reload, I kill somebody and I reload, this is basically what will have happened. I'll pull out this magazine. It'll still only have 11 rounds in it, and I'll put a new one in. If I shoot some of this, reload again, I'll reload to this one. And if I shoot some of that, I'm going to reload to this 11 out of 20 mag. The game will actually automatically reload to the magazine that has the highest capacity, or has the most ammo in it, not highest capacity. So if I shot this down to, 17, I'd reload back to this mag. But it's important to know that this isn't a Call of Duty style game where if I just have 400 bullets and every time I reload, it's to a full mag. You can reload to mags that are half full or almost empty. And then what you're going to need to do is bring ammo into a raid. You can put it in your secure container down here so you don't lose it, or you can bring it here. And periodically throughout the raid, you're going to need to refill those mags. In your stash here, that happens instantly. In a raid, you load it in 1 round at a time. So you are making the call there of how many mags you bring in, how much extra ammo you bring in. If you bring in a ton and you die, it feels like you lost a lot. But if you bring in too little and run out of ammo in the middle of a raid, that can be frustrating as well. The other thing to note is that you need to have an open space in your rig to put a mag. If I brought 8 magazines right here and then the one in the gun, if I reload, he's got no place to put this mag before he reaches for another one. So he'll drop it on the ground. You can pick it up if you want, but just know that as well. If you fill this up, or if everything was filled up, even just with other stuff, little stuff, if I don't have a place to put this mag, it's not going to work. I can't put it anywhere. He's just going to drop it on the floor. So just be aware of that and know that you've got to give your PMC room. He will not reload it to the backpack. There has to be room here. If it's a 1 slot mag, like a very small capacity mag, he can reload to single slots here. So make sure there's room in your rig. Now, anything that you want to use while you're in a game has to be in your pockets or your tactical rig, or you're going to have to tab into your inventory into the raid. So for instance, if I have my grenades in my backpack here and I press G in the raid, I'm not going to throw them. They have to be in your pockets or in your rig. Same with meds. You can tab into your inventory, right click a med and use it. You can right click a medication from your secure container as well. But in order to hotkey them, they have to be in your pockets or in your rig. Your character's not going to take off his backpack and, right in the middle unless you tell him to. So grenades are bound by G by default. You can bind them to something, a specific number if you want. And then your medication, you have to bind in order to be able to use. So you can either drag it down here, or you can just hover over something and press the number on your keypad and bind it that way. So now if I had 4, I'm going to use my med. If I had 5, I'm going to use my painkiller in raid. So that is some of the overview of things that you need to know before going into a raid. There's countless people with horror stories of bringing the wrong caliber ammo, not bringing extra mags, not knowing they had to refill their ammo on the fly, not knowing they've got all their meds in their backpack and they don't know how to use it. You've got to be able to do that. You've got a secondary slot here for a weapon, a holster slot for a pistol, eyewear, face cover, Earpieces are tactical headsets, which you can't wear with certain helmets. If they cover your ears, you can with others. These are designed to heighten some ambient noises, dampen other ambient noises, and make it so that you can hear other players better. I would recommend using them when you get the chance to, but they're not required. And then an armband. I've got another video, which I'll link down below, that kind of goes into a lot of that stuff in depth, but those are a bunch of things that you should know before you hop into a raid. You do not have to bring all these things. You don't have to bring a rig. You don't have to bring armor or a helmet if you don't have those things, but I wanted to make sure that you understood what each of these things did so that you can go into a raid and have that understanding. Now, finally, I'm going to cut the camera here again. And before we hop into going through what you would use to start a raid, in the bottom left corner here, you can see the weight system. So this has been recently introduced, and it's how heavy your character is. This is a heavy kit. So I would be going into a raid at 38 kilograms. Now, what happens is as you start bringing stuff, as you start looting things, that number goes up. And as you kill players and as you start to bring more stuff out of a raid, that number will go up. As you get heavier, you start to get some debuffs to your character. It's harder to move around. Your stamina is going to deplete faster. Your walking speed is going to be slower. You can't walk as fast. It's going to be harder to get up to a full sprint, stuff like that. And it scales. So the heavier you are, the more of those debuffs that you get. Eventually, you'll start to lose stamina even just by walking. Eventually, you won't be able to regain your stamina unless you're standing still, crouched, or prone. And it makes it much, much harder. So these is where a lot of decisions come in on what do I want to take out? What do I want to maybe ditch? What's important to me? Stuff like that. Once this number goes yellow from green, so it's green now, I don't have any debuffs. Once it crosses over to the yellow threshold, that's when you're going to start to get those debuffs. The heavier you are, the more those debuffs you're going to get. And then when you get super heavy, it goes to red. And when you're in the red zone, you cannot sprint at all. And you're just so slow. It's so much harder to get out of a raid. But there have been times where I've hobbled my way out of a raid, even in the red. So it's up to you to decide that in the moment. I did do a video explaining that whole system in much more detail and how to kind of combat some of those effects, but be aware of that as well as you're looting, especially as a newer player going in. You're not going to be going in really heavy, but if you have a really good raid and you're taking a bunch of stuff out, you might get pretty heavy. Now, that is everything you need to know. Now, if you click Escape from Tarkov, you click your PMC, you can go into a raid. These are the maps. You'll see ones are locked. These ones we're hoping to get soon, but you can pick your map. You can see this is important. There's a nighttime and a daytime, and it's not always left and right. These times will just continue to go. So sometimes the right is the daytime one, sometimes the left. The nighttime window is pretty narrow. It's like, 2200 to like 400. It's a pretty narrow dark time window, which is why most people use daytimes. There is night vision, there are flashlights, there are lasers, or you can go in with none of those things to a nighttime raid if you want. Beware, Tarkov at night is basically a horror game. It is terrifying. But you pick the time of day. It'll show you a little bit about the weather. You'll click next. This is incredibly important. There is an offline mode that you can do solo. This is one of the things I recommend to new players almost more than anything else. You can go in, you can check offline mode. You can check if you want random time or weather conditions. You can turn on or off the PvE. You can assign a difficulty to the PvE, an amount to the PvE. Tagged and cursed means they always know where you are. Enable bosses means you can test out the bosses. Scav war means the scavs are going to be fighting each other. This is an incredible way to learn the maps, learn the extractions, learn the spawn points, learn loot location, test out weapons, test out builds, test out your aim, practice your aim, practice against the PvP, and all of this is no risk. You're not going to gain anything. If you go to an offline raid, you loot a bunch, you extract. As soon as you get back to the main menu, you have none of that stuff. You're not going to get experience either. But the flip side of that is anything you bring into an offline raid, if you die, you don't lose. Same thing with ammo. If you bring a bunch of ammo, you shoot a bunch and you extract, you get all that ammo back. This is a complete wash, but it is a no risk way to practice the game. This is incredibly important for new players, in my opinion. I did this a bunch. Even I still sometimes will start with an offline raid just to practice aim or warm up a little bit. But if you don't want to do offline, you click next. This is where you can insure your gear. Now, you can just click insure all. The insurance system works like this. Anything you insure, if when that raid ends, nobody's taken it out of a raid, you will get it back in a few days, like IRL days, like 1 to 2 days. But if anybody finds that, whether it's a player scav or a PMC, if they find your item, if they loot your body and they take it out of a raid, you will not get it back and you wasted the money on the insurance. Now, it is almost always worth insuring your gear. This is probably a 1,000,000 ruble kit, if not close to it, 800,000 ruble kit. And I only pay 37,000 rubles to insure it. If I get one of these things back, if I get the backpack back from insurance, if they take everything and they leave my backpack, that's paid for the insurance. If I get one of these guns back, I've made money by doing that and then not having to buy this gun again. So in general, unless you're really strapped for cash, it is very advisable to insure your gear. You don't have to insure all of it. You can insure specific items if you don't want to insure your backpack or something like that. You can insure your bag. It will insure the mags, but it will not insure the ammo. Ammo, meds, and grenades can't be insured. You can also insure from Therapist for a higher fee. But the difference is when you will get a message in your messenger down in the bottom right whenever you get something back from insurance. Prop War, once you get it back from insurance, gives you, I think, about 48 hours of IRL time to claim that insurance and drag it back into your stash. Therapist charges more, but she gives you a longer time. So if you played on the weekend, you can't play again for 4 or 5 days. You might want to insure with Therapist so that you don't spend the money, get your insurance back, and then not be able to actually claim it. So that's the insurance system. I'll go ahead and insure everything from Prop War. You click insure, you pay the money. Now you can hit next again. This is the lobby. If you are playing, if you want to play with some people, everybody that you hit start looking for group, and then you'll show up in this list. Or if your friends hit start looking for group, they'll show up in this list. You can right click them, invite them to group, and party up. You can have up to 5 PMCs total in a raid. And then you hit ready and you are into that raid. They also put the ready button back through most of these. So if you know it's already insured, I can just click customs left side ready if you want. And that brings you into an Escape from Tarkov raid. And now once you get into a raid, I wanted to bring up one of these maps I was talking about earlier to explain some of the mechanics while you're in a raid. So once again, I'm going to link this down below. I would highly recommend you use these maps instead of the ones in the game. But this is a customs map. So it's showing me where scavs spawn. It's showing me certain quest things. It's showing me these little green things are the spawn points and also some of the extractions. Showing all sorts of stuff, where the scav boss is going to spawn, keys, loot, and all sorts of stuff like that. The way Escape from Tarkov works, and once again, I've got more detailed guides on this as well that you can check out on the channel, is basically if you cut the map in half, most maps work like this. Half of the players spawn on one side, half the players spawn on the other. If you spawn on this left side of the map, your extraction is going to be on the right side of the map. So they design, so it's pushing you from one side to the other to extract. So you're not going to be able to just hang out in a small area and then extract. You've got to run to the other side. Everybody that spawns will have a guaranteed extraction that's open for them. And if you double tap O, it'll show you what it is. Using these maps are great because you're going to be able to, if you have it up on a second monitor or your phone, you're going to be able to see what's the name of that extraction and then find it here and then be like, oh, that's my extraction. Now I can go there. All the other extractions that pop up when you double tap O with the question marks are potential extractions. So the smuggler's boat is one I use all the time, where if I spawn on this side of the map and I'll see smuggler's boat is a potential extraction. If there's no campfire down there, when I go down there, that extract isn't available to me. So if I'm coming in to extract on this side of the map and I'm over here, the smuggler's boat is a little bit closer. I don't have to expose myself on these bridges. I can run out of my way to check it, but it might not be there. If it is there, it's a more convenient way to extract and I can get out. But if it's not, I'm going to have to loop back around. So I just wanted to pull this up to show you and talk about that's how the flow of these raids work. They push you from one side to the other. You do your quests, you do your PvP, you do your PvE, and you extract on the other side of the map. There are some dynamic extractions. Some of the potential extractions are like that, like the Dorms V exit. You have to pay a driver to take you away. You have to pay rubles. Certain maps like Labs and Reserve have dynamic extractions where you need to not have a backpack, or you need to flip a lever before that extraction opens up. There's guides on those dynamic extractions. They're going to add more of them, but on most of the maps, it's just if you get to this place, you can just wait there for a few seconds. The little extraction countdown timer pops up on your screen and you extract from the raid. So that's it. Like I said, that's a really long video, especially for my channel, but I thought it was really important to have a video for all the new players that they can kind of learn just about everything they need to know before they hop into a raid. If I missed something, which I'm sure that I did, please drop a comment down below if you're not new to Escape from Tarkov and you've played a bunch, or if there's just something that I missed that you see. And if you like this content or the other guides that I make, think about dropping a like on the video or subscribing. Like I said, linked below is going to be a ton of my more in detailed guides about a bunch of these subjects. I also do strategy guides. I do stuff where I review clips and we figure out what we could have done better. My whole thing is I'm always trying to create content that helps shorten the learning curve of the game and gets you in your raids having fun as soon as possible. I think it's all about getting better and having more fun at the game. So thank you so much for hanging out. Like I said, I do have a Twitch that I stream on. I've got a Discord, which is linked down below, where you can ask questions, get help with quests, even find some people to raid with. And I've got a weekly podcast that I do with Veritas, another amazing content creator in the Escape from Tarkov community, who coded the Battle Buddy app, which has so much of the information that I just gave you, all coded into one app that you can download on iOS or Android, which I will link down below. So if you're interested in the podcast, that's linked down below as well. Thank you for listening to me talk about all this stuff. I hope that it helps. Hit me up if you have any questions, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.